I really wanted to talk to you about your journaling practice because you're in the process of creating two courses, and it felt
Yes.
like to me just putting together one course has been incredibly stressful. But in checking out your first course, which is about time and task management,
Hmm.
noticed that you have a productivity journaling system. And people assume that journaling is going up to the highest spot in Arkansas or wherever you live with a leather bound journal in a backpack and, sweat coming off you and you're alone, which is never in my mind a really good idea.
Right.
And they just write for hours and hours. And your practice is a prime example of how we can journal quickly. And journaling is more than just what I described.
Sure.
So that's why I really wanted to talk to you. Before we dive into that, I would really like for you to tell us about both courses.
Sure. Absolutely. So the one that I released in mid-ish September, that's the Powerful Task Management and Rome Research. That course is uh, basically getting things done style, the David Allen, book from 2000 or so, and my implementation of that in Rome Research. So I've been, as far as the background of that, I read Getting Things Done for the first time in 2014. I was in the midst of creating musical, producing a musical that we had written and toured around here in the state of West Virginia about West Virginia history. And we've actually done that several times now. But I was also producing a short film about a mining disaster. And, it was absolute chaos. And so I felt I had to do something. I'd never been a particularly organized person, had never needed to be, and I read Getting Things Done and I implemented it. And at first, I used the app Todoist to capture my tasks, and it was a complete world change. I when I talk to clients and so forth, I say it is not an exaggeration for me to say that Getting Things Done changed my life because I was suddenly able to accomplish things without feeling like I was just lost in the weeds all the time. So fast forward 6 years, I've been using Todoist that whole time for my and using that implementing Getting Things Done in Todoist that whole time. March of this year is when I came across Rome Research, and I had never really been a major note taker. I'd used Evernote sort of off and on for when I needed to write something down. That's where it would go, but I would have to tag it to some kind of a note in Todoist, or I would forget it was there. I had no, it didn't ever work for me in any kind of regular way. Well, I found very quickly that Rome did work for me, and that it had increased my output and frankly changed my life in the same way that Getting Things Done had very quickly. And I knew that I needed to build my system in Rome. Rome, of course, does has it has functionality for to dos and done, but it doesn't have any real structure built out for task management. So that was what I set myself to do. In particular, recurring tasks, because I felt like you need a place for daily and weekly and monthly and annual, and there are shades of those, quarterly and other and bi-monthly, but they can kind of all work into some version of daily and weekly and monthly and annual. And that's what that course teaches, is the structure that I built for accomplishing Getting Things Done with my own sort of 6 years worth of what works for me a little bit better, and then implementing that in a structure within Rome Research. And it's funny that you mentioned it as a type of journaling, because I unfortunately, until encountering your work, was of the variety that I would go to the highest point here in West Virginia with my backpack. And now I wouldn't do that though. I laughed at myself I found, this was maybe a couple of years ago now, I found, a journal that I was going to keep years ago. I was in college, and it was the standard, I think journal that a lot of people keep of that variety. The first entry was like 3 pages of all these thoughts and ideas. And the second one was, the next day was like, well, I didn't have much to write today, but I wanted to make sure I wrote. And the third entry was 3 weeks later, like, sorry, journal, I haven't been. And that was the extent of the journal. Maybe there was another entry several months later or some nonsense like that. But it wasn't, that was what journaling meant to me. And it hadn't occurred to me until you just said it a few minutes ago that what I was doing in the Getting This Done is a form of journaling too, because writing down the things that are going into the inbox, processing those into another layer of things, it is a very, at the very least, an analogous practice. And, absolutely, I think even more than that, it is a type of that. So I think that's pretty cool. Thank you for noting that, because that actually hadn't occurred to me. I think that it's what I love about task management in Rome, and the reason I had to build that course, well, the reason I built it for myself and then turned it into a course, is that being able to have the genesis of the tasks remain living in the notes where they were, and still have that link, being able to connect them via block reference to the task system, so I can keep the tasks nice and orderly and structured the way I need them to be in order to keep track of them, and so they'll show up in the queries the right way and that stuff. But all I have to do is click on the asterisk of the alias, and boom, I'm over in the notes where the idea came from. So I always have that context immediately available. That was what it was about for me, and that's been the life-changing element of that course for me. And I'm sorry, I've been talking a long time here, but since you asked, the second course is Your Road to Rome. And I have committed that I'm going to release this next week. I sent the email to the people who'd signed up saying it will be between Tuesday and Thursday of next week. And I've done that because I have been, working and putting off, not intentionally, but just there were a few little kernels of ideas that I wasn't quite ready to attack.
Yeah.
And I didn't, how it goes. That's I kind of knew what they were, but I kind of didn't quite. And the challenge with this course for me was that it was powerful task management with Rome research came very easily to me because I'd been doing task management for a long time, and it was one workflow that I was breaking down. Your Road to Rome uses several different workflows. And so, although I've used all of them and I understand them, I kind of underestimated how much I needed to build up in order to be able to demonstrate them in my demo graph. And so, yes. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to do all that. I forgot that I have to build all this out.
Totally.
And so that was, and there are several workflows. And so that was the hurdle that I, about a week ago in my self-coaching / journaling that I was doing, kind of broke through and realized, oh man, this is what's holding me back. I'm afraid of diving into that because I realize there's more there. On some level, I realize it without, realizing it consciously, that there's more there. But the core of that course is that I want it to be onboarding for Rome for the people who either are brand new to Rome or are in it and love it, but feel like there's more that they could be getting out of it. And although I have several workflows, the idea is not to dictate to people what workflows they should be following, but to break down the features, show how they work together using those workflows as the examples, and then kind of coach them in the circle community that we have there, coach them to recognize how they can use those features in their own workflows. So it's kind of half training, kind of half coaching, really digging into the building blocks of what Rome is and growing from there. That's the concept of this course. So
Isn't that fun, RJ, that the Rome community is about teaching how we do things with the understanding that how you do things will develop over time, probably into something completely different.
Yes, it's amazing.
Yesterday we had a group coaching call as part of the course it was a bonus for the top 20 people or the first 20 people who signed up for my course.
Mm-hmm.
And it gave me a chance to learn better what people are looking for. And so the week before last, I got a request to demo a thing. And when I put it together and demoed it yesterday, I could never do that. We asked for it, but that doesn't work for me. And I'm like, yay, that it's okay to say that. You know, you ask for something and you show it, well, that's not for me. Wonderful. I love that.
Yeah, I agree. And I've, tweeted before how impressed I am with the community around Rome Research. It's just so supportive. I think one time I said that we agree with passion and disagree with grace, and it always feels that there's never any kind of. I mean, and we're on Twitter. Like Twitter can be toxic.
There's rancor among us.
Exactly, but it's so easygoing and helpful and supportive. So it really felt like, because I'd never really used Twitter. I mean, I had an account, but I'd never really used Twitter until I started engaging with the Rome community, and then I found it was like, I know these people. These are my people. I understand that we get it.
Yeah, 100%. Okay. I'm trying to figure out where I want to go from here. I think
Sure.
If you're up for it, I would really like for you to do a demo for us.
Sure.
Like one of your favorite journaling techniques that maybe you didn't know was a journaling technique.
Sure, absolutely. Let me open up my self-coaching here. Let me open up a blank page somewhere. So that I don't like unintentionally, you know, give away my children's birthdays or something.
Yeah.
Let me see. Sorry, I have two monitors, and my one is above my camera, and my wife always tells me I look like a maniac looking above my camera. It's funny because you look below your camera and it looks normal, and you look above, it's like, where is that guy looking? What on earth is happening here? Yeah. Do you want me to share my screen over? Is that something that would be okay? I'll share my screen here. Let's see. I'm totally fine with that. Let me see here. Screen share. Okay, so this is my. Actually, bring it down here where I won't have to look at it over the top now that my Zoom is in the little box in the corner. So this is not on every Monday. I do a what I call a self-coaching, which until you pointed it out to me hadn't really occurred to me that was a journaling technique. It seems, in retrospect, by the by, so obvious that these things that are journaling, but because I had that belief of the on the mountain with the backpack, as you put it, that I didn't never even occurred to me, to the point where just recently I've been using a lot more journaling with my own coaching clients, because I realized we've been doing these sorts of things already, but now I have a vocabulary for it that I didn't have before, which is really helpful to sort of explain that. So anyway, this is what I do. I have a, and you can see this is for Monday, so I have to put out the recycling that's already hanging out there. But actually that isn't for Monday, is it? Yeah, it is. That's Monday. So I have a little text expander snippet that I use for my self-coaching, and it brings up my thing here. This is its own page. On this page is where my questions live, and you can see here that I have the references to the past 12 weeks that I've been doing this self-coaching on Monday. So I could go to all of those here. You can see, of course, I have the linked references down here as well.
Am I looking at the wrong screen here?
I don't know. Am I looking at the wrong screen? What did I have in front
of you? November 16th.
I have November 16th. Maybe has my screen frozen? Because I was on the November 16th page.
right?
Let me have a look here. Let me
It's
see if I'm
just
sharing.
it's blank with your weekly tasks.
Yeah, I'm wondering if my
There it
screen
is.
froze. Oh, you know what? I brought it to my other screen, and I was sharing the screen rather than the window. And so when I
Okay,
pulled it to my other monitor, that's where it went
there it
away.
is. All
Got
right.
it. So let
Sorry
me.
about that.
Sorry about that. Let me back. I'll bounce back here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I should see. I'm trying to be smart and move it to the other window, and then and or the other screen where I can see it, and I've ruined everything. So anyway, what I use is I have a little text expander snippet that I type self, and it brings up my self coaching questions here, and you can see these are all actually linked. These are all actually block references, and I do that because here's how I do it. I have them all living over here on my self coaching page. You can see these are the original blocks. These is how many times they've been referenced. I do that because then when I come back here and I type coaching, I type what's on my mind, and goodness, I don't know what's on my mind right now. And let's see if I have you. Yes, I do. Look, you're already in there as a reference. And so I would type that, and that means that I can go back now through my not just the self coaching in general, but I can go back question by question and see, and these are filtered, I can see, so I must have been looking at them here, and see all of the times that I've answered that question specifically and look and see what sort of things that I've been thinking and doing. And goodness gracious, I don't know what I've been thinking and doing here. Look, I have here on November 2nd. I say, I'm freezing up a bit on your road to Rome. I'm fairly sure it's just the fear of success issue again. Every time I look at the content, it feels right, and I just need to trust it and get going. I think looking at November 2nd, probably there was something coming
You
on
are my
November 3rd.
people.
Yes. Yes. I will tell you, though, that I did have later that week a realization that there may have been a national event on November 3rd that had been weighing on my mind a bit as well.
Yeah, we
So
really
the
screwed up Twitter for the whole world for a week, didn't we?
exactly, exactly. And then I had some transcriptions. In this particular case, it's music, not like it was a music transcription because I'm a composer by training. But so that's an example of something I would might have answered to that question there. I don't know what else I wrote. I'm scared to read what sort of if I cursed at myself or anything here. I didn't here. It looks like I have lots of ideas rolling around. Since I need to be more closely attending to financial situation, just making sure that things are moving in the right direction always, nothing serious, but keep, staying focused on that kind of stuff. That's tough for me because money just doesn't matter that much to me. Like I have to remember that it's it does, but it doesn't. And I have to keep that in front of mind. And then I have a consultation with a new client and that kind of stuff. So that's the sort of things that I would write in here when I'm tracking these things. And that's how I do it. I do it with I keep the blocks here and then I reference them on the other page. And I do that because then I can not only look at these total coaching, but I can also look question by question if it ever comes up. I mean, of course, I could do these as page references as well, but I find this to be a slightly more
Yeah.
pleasing way of pulling that off.
How does this help you, RJ? Like self-coaching? Do you just separate your mind and
Yes,
pretend that you're coaching someone else and put on your coaching hat and your client hat?
yeah, essentially I do, and I'm gonna give you a little analogy here that I discovered I was good at this when we first produced our musical about West Virginia history that I mentioned. It's not always easy for writers to direct their own material because they're married to it in ways that other people wouldn't be. And but I'm also a pretty critical editor of my own work, so I'm able to just separate myself from those things. So I was a fairly effective, I mean, at least I thought so, director of my own material because I didn't once I was directing, I literally did not think of it from the perspective of the writer anymore. I was just, let's make this material work. And I mean, if I had a moment that I'm like, this clearly doesn't work, I had the power to rewrite it because I was the writer, but I was able to disassociate. It's really exactly the same thing here. When I used these similar questions: what's on my mind? What else is on my mind? I think I said in the video when I talked about this method That second question sounds redundant, but it's actually really useful. It's like the analogy I used was it's like squeezing, when you have the toothpaste tube and it's out of toothpaste, but then you roll it up from the bottom to get the rest out. It's the same sort of thing, that just prompting a what else is there makes you look a little bit further and a little bit into the deeper recesses. The real challenge question helps me identify what are the actual hurdles. The things that are on my mind, may be sort of stream of consciousness, but the real challenge helps me dig down into what are the things that I have control over, that are the situations that are actually holding me up. Before I then decide what I'm going to do, I define for myself, what do I want? Which, by clarifying the goal and making sure that I'm not accidentally moving towards something I don't want, that helps me take what those challenges are and then ultimately get to that last question and answer, what am I going to do? What is this? I do it once a week, so that question really applies to the week for me. But that's sort of the flow. And it's sort of, the first part is like a brain. I have a system I call Bomber: brainstorm, organize, make, and refine, that I use for creating content. And it's really similar in that first part is brainstorming, getting all the stuff out of there, and the second one is kind of trying to structure it into what the real things are, and then and take stock of what I actually want, and then the what am I going to do is the actionable step of what comes out of that. And I don't know if that answers your question or not, because I think that the
Sure.
question was slightly tangential to that, or my answer was slightly tangential to the question, but that's how I use it. And the question was, how do I separate myself? Honestly, one of the reasons I like doing it in Rome is I think Rome for me functions like a coach. When I'm coaching clients, I'm not a consultant. I don't come in with industry knowledge and do work for you. I come in and you're the one with the knowledge, and I'm the one helping you organize it and figure out how to use it. Rome is very much that for me. I use Rome to coach myself, and I ask the questions and I put the questions in one place, but because I'm referencing them, it's almost as though I'm not even the person who wrote them. They come through, and I'm able to answer them without feeling like I'm coaching myself. It really feels like I'm receiving a coaching when I'm doing it.
Before I let you get on with your day, I'm really interested in how you would instruct someone to set up a system like this in their own database.
Mm-hmm.
Would you begin with a baseline of these exact questions? Would you advise someone to throw in a wild card question based on something they're struggling with? What would that look like?
So this is such a great question, because I am only just starting to incorporate Rome into work with my clients. And that's largely because, and I think I've heard this voiced in other places in the Rome community, is it's hard to articulate to a client exactly what Rome does. I'm going to unshare my screen here if that's okay, because my
Yeah.
mind keeps wanting to go up here to the top, and there's nothing up there that I needed to look at. It's hard to explain to a client what Rome is exactly. And so, with that hurdle being there, it's I haven't really. I mean, I've brought it up. They've seen me using it. I've been a major endorser of it, but I haven't necessarily given it to somebody else until just recently. And the answer to that is, when I do a consultation in advance of, like, the discovery session, or whatever the term might be, for starting with a new client, what I see them needing to work on would dictate what kinds of questions I would put in there. I have some clients who specifically want to focus on communication, so I'm going to be encouraging them to, in the morning, answer answer a prompt that's related to what conversations they're expecting to have that day, what they really want out of those conversations, that kind of stuff, and at the end of the day, to go back and say, well, how'd that go? what were the things that went the way I'd hoped they went, what were the things that were still challenges, so that each day they can be bookending it with, what they want, and then what actually happened. Not in a judgment kind of way, but just in an assessment kind of way. So
Sure.
you use that going forward. So that would be one way. This one, I've not suggested this one to anyone specifically, other than suggesting it to the world by putting it in a YouTube video. But but yes, using that sort of format where I would encourage them to prepare for the day with some intentions, specific to what their concerns are, and then to assess the results of that day at the end of the day, specific to their concerns. That's how I've been using it so far.
And I love the communication analogy. If there's one thing you want to work on, there's no better way
Mm-hmm.
than answering a few specific prompts in the morning and then assessing that in the afternoon to work on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is the power and the might of journaling.
Yes.
And you couple that with Rome, which makes it so stupid easy to just assess it. I want to review, I don't like to review.
Right, exactly.
But all I got to do is hit a link and I'm quickly reviewing and I'm done.
Yep. It's the friction is essentially non-existent in Rome, both on the way in and on the way out. And that's so key when you're trying to do this kind of work on yourself, or when your clients are trying to do the work for themselves. When it's something you already kind of don't want to do, you kind of that any little, what I call a headwind, any little friction point is enough to make you stop. And Rome essentially takes that away. It makes it so easy.
Yeah. RJ, how do we get in touch with you?
Absolutely. So my website is rjnestor.com. My name is unusual enough that I was able to secure the main one. That's right. And my last name is Nestor. So if there's any question there, rjnestor.com. And the information's there if anybody wants to get in touch with me. I'm also at rjnestor on Twitter. So most of the places I am, I'm just RJ Nestor. Again, the uniqueness of my name, named after my two grandfathers, Ray and James. And since they went by Ray and James, I've always been RJ. So I always know if it's a telemarketer if they ask for Ray. It's somebody who doesn't know me. But yeah, that's the easiest way to get in touch with me.